Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelenskyy have entered into a very public war of words. It began when the US president appeared to blame his Ukrainian counterpart for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, chiding him for complaining about being excluded from talks about his country's future between the US and Russia. Now, President Zelenskyy then suggested that Donald Trump was being influenced by Russian disinformation, sparking a blistering social media attack from the American president.
As Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine nears its third anniversary, Kyiv has grown accustomed to repelling relentless attacks. But this time, it came from an unexpected place. Its ally, the US. US President Donald Trump has blamed Russia's invasion of Ukraine on the president of Ukraine.
Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Sealing his claims later with this social media post full of unsubstantiated claims, including calling Zelenskyy a dictator who wants the war to continue. The post came after Ukraine's president pointedly disagreed with Trump's accusations he was responsible for Russia's aggression.
President Trump is someone who we respect a lot as a leader of the nation that we really respect, the American nation, who supported us all the time. Unfortunately, he lives in a disinformation space.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin, in turn, offered support for Trump's strategy of excluding Ukraine from talks.
Without increasing the level of trust between Russia and the US, resolutions of many issues, including the Ukraine crisis, is impossible.
And while trust between Russia and the US seems to be growing, Ukraine and its European supporters fear that they are about to lose their most important ally.
Let's explore some of these issues with Alina Polyakova, who's president of the Center for European Policy Analysis in Washington. She's an expert on transatlantic relations. Welcome to DW. Do you think President Trump's false claim that Ukraine is to blame for the war is now official US policy?
President Trump, as we know from his first term, likes to say a lot of inflammatory things, especially on social media. But despite that, his claim that the democratically elected leader of Ukraine is illegitimate, that he's a so-called dictator, in the president's words, is completely false, of course. And I think we have to be aware that this is the line that the Russian president and Russian media have been pushing out for a very long time, trying to undermine President Zelenskyy in his efforts to defend Ukraine against Russia's invasion.
OK, it's false, but does it now become US policy because that is what the president wishes? The president says black is white, then so be it.
No, I wouldn't go that far. Again, we have seen this before. The president likes to say all kinds of things. That doesn't mean that it's US policy now that President Zelenskyy or that Ukraine is not seen as a democratic country. I think it's too early to tell how these comments will reverberate across the administration, but this is not U.S. policy. If we define policy in terms of actions, right now we're in the realm of words and rhetoric and arguments, and it would take some specific policy actions for the situation to change. But on this particular issue, I think we have to see how this plays out still.
How does the US benefit from blaming Volodymyr Zelenskyy for Russia's invasion of his country?
I mean, this is the most, I would say, confusing element of the war of words that we're now seeing President Trump and President Zelenskyy engage in this public setting. Of course, it doesn't benefit the U.S. in any way. In fact, Russia's invasion of Ukraine undermines U.S. national security interests, not just in Ukraine, but in Europe and the world more broadly. So repeating the Russian false allegation that President Zelenskyy is not a legitimate leader when he was elected democratically. And of course, Putin was never elected democratically, unless you maybe go back to the election in 2000 that initially brought him to power. Since then, he's killed every single opposition member that could have actually competed in an election. And he himself is the dictator. There's no question about that. And certainly President Trump's comments undermine U.S. national security interests.
Let's look then at how this shifting US policy is affecting Europe. What message does this cozying up to Russia, does this denigration of the Ukrainian president, what message does that shift in US policy send to Europe?
Well, if there's any silver lining to the shift in at least how the president and those close to him are talking about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is that it has sent anxiety and panic waves across Europe. I was just at the Munich Security Conference. I was there in the room for Vice President Vance's speech, which was received as a huge shock to the entire audience in Munich, where he aligned himself and presumably some parts of the Trump administration with Europe's far-right extremist parties. But if there's a silver lining, it's that Europe has to get its act together and be responsible for its defense and security. We're not in a situation yet where we've seen the Trump administration pull back troops out of Europe or anything of that sort. Again, that's a policy change. Right now, we're just in the world of words. However, it's, I think, very clear that Europe hasn't done what it needs to do, and it had many opportunities to do so. And now complacency must disappear. The will has to be there. The money is there. And now European leaders must act to defend Europe and to invest very aggressively in Europe's defense industrial base.
That sounds like sense. You say they must do. That would be the rational thing to do. But surely one of the arguments that the Trump administration can easily make is that Europe is incapable of acting in a coherent, effective manner. There's a massive blaze in Europe's backyard, and rather than throw everything at putting it out, they squabble about how much the water will cost and sit on their hands until the American fire trucks arrive.
Well, look, you won't get much argument from me there. I mean, we have had a situation where Europe has, of course, been dependent on the U.S. defense and security umbrella. That's a relationship that has also benefited the United States, to be clear, because we have had our strongest alliance, both defense alliance and economic.
Forgive me for interrupting, but we're coming to the end, and I'm glad that there's no argument between us. But my question really is, will Europe do what is required?
I think there's no other choice left. And sitting on your hands is not going to ensure that there's not a Russian invasion of Europe's eastern flank, or that we won't see the continued shadow war that Russia has been carrying out within Europe as we speak. So Europe must think big and act fast. And I hope European leaders have gotten the message. The era of complacency has to end.
Good talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Alina Polyakova from the Centre for European Policy Analysis. Thank you.
Thank you.